Okay. Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here, Basketball Rewind. Here we are to talk about the men's side of the bracket. And lo and behold, the men right now are still in it to win it. Unlike the women side, unfortunately, we will be talking about that in another episode, and also just Canadian sports and how they've done. Unfortunately, they were expected to also do really well, and they've disappointed us. But for that discussion, click the link in the description when it arrives, or just stay tuned on Basketball Rewind, like, comment, and subscribe. So, with all that out of the way, we are here to talk about Shea, the man, the as I like to affectionately refer to him as, the real MVP, of the NBA. But I digress. And we're going to be talking about basically how Canada has done thus far. They basically won their group. Not basically, they did win their group outright. And with that being said, they are entering the bracket stage of competition, and they are still hoping to medal, of course, because both them and the U.S. had identical records. Now, of course, the U.S. ended up with the number one seed. I'm not really sure how they decided the
Point
brackets.
differential.
Yeah. Oh, is it point differential? Okay, because I wasn't. It made it seem like they were gonna draw some of these
No.
games or whatever.
It
So
depended on if Puerto Rico actually kept it close, that was the possibility. But when you're blowing people out by 20 points a night,
true.
like pretty.
So before I get to coach's opinion, I guess we should just talk about who we're facing or the brackets in general. I will have it up on the screen for people, but essentially we need to win one more game before we are fighting for a medal. So that's important. If as long as we win one more game, we are then fighting for a medal, regardless of what happens. Our on our side of the bracket, and we are on the reverse side of the Americans, we are going to be facing France first, and then the winner of Germany and Greece. So we might be facing old foes again, one way or another. And then on the flip side of the bracket, you have Brazil, as well as you have the United States facing off against each other. Good luck, Bruno. And then, of course, the Americans seem to have the inverse of what we had. They seem to have a tougher way out to face us, which is that they're going to face the winner of either Serbia or Australia. First and foremost, we should be talking about how we got here before we talk about the rest of the bracket. Coach, I'm going to start with you. Because in a previous segment I started with Beyond first, so I got to spread the love around. Coach, obviously you're doing well because we've talked already. What I'm more interested in hearing is what is your opinion on how Canada basically got here, from a strategy standpoint?
I think the biggest part is their defense. Their defense has been very good throughout this tournament, and they've had some timely baskets from players. When you watch a basketball game, you kind of just know when the momentum can shift. And I found that RJ Barrett and Shea, Nemhard, particularly in our last game against Spain, really made some big baskets when we needed them. But Canada has been doing well in this tournament, quite frankly, because of their defense. When you have Lou Dort pick up full court, whether it's Calathis, whether it's Lorenzo Brown, whether it's Josh Giddey or Patty Mills, I give Lou Dort a lot of credit for really enhancing the role that he has. Dylan Brooks in particular as well. His defense has been very good. Doesn't matter who he's guarding. It's not going to shock me if he has to guard someone a foot taller than him in Victor Wembanyama. So the big success so far for Canada, I'd have to say, is their defense, their guard play. RJ Barrett, I think he's been Mr. Consistent. I think in the metrics that I see that the Olympics posts for FIBA basketball, RJ has the highest rating, I believe. If I check here one more time, I believe that he does have it. I think he was behind. Yes, he's third behind Jokic and my
I
apologies.
believe,
Shay's number one. Yes,
yeah.
RJ's now is number three. So I think Canada has found a bit of a second option in RJ as well on on offense. And Dwight Powell and Ken Birch have also played pretty good roles from that big position because, quite frankly, in our front court, particularly at our center spots, we're not as strong. And that's what's going to be a problem against France because that is their strength, are their big guys. But if Canada's defense continues to play the way it has been, we're going to be in good shape.
Beyond your thoughts.
Yeah, I just come at it different way. I'll flip it the other way. I think, yeah, all the stuff that Coach said I agree with, but I'm going to kind of focus on Powell because I think he's been kind of unsung hero. He's held the fort down in the front court when we really haven't had much else from anybody else. I mean, Ken Birch had a little moment there against Greece, which was pretty good, but for the most part, he's been, he's what you get. He's Ken Birch, like at this point. It is what it is, and I shouldn't expect anything more from him. I think the two guys that I'm sitting here waiting to see if when they're going to kind of show up to the party is Jamal Murray, who, funny enough, NBA Radio had a good 15-minute segment about him and his performance so far the other day. Ooh, and that contract he's asking for, they were getting in on
Oh
him.
man, I
Think
might have
I've
to
been,
listen to that later.
yeah. So, EJ and what's the name? Termini boy, they were holding back on his performance so far. But he's got to show up, man. Like I said last week, like we're not winning any medals or any sort of any mineral or any whatever you want to call it, unless he plays close to what he can be capable of playing. The other guy's got to show up. And let me tell you something, Raptor fans. You want to talk Raptors? I'll give you some Raptor talk, man. Let me tell you something. Kelly O got to show up, dude. He's still at the bags packed sitting here in Toronto. I might see the luggage still sitting there on the tarmac. Like, yo, where's he been? At least Murray's showing some signs once the blue moon of games. Like, okay, there's the old Murray. That dude's been on a milk carton for like an entire week and a half, man. Like, yo, has he come to Paris yet? Because I ain't seen him. I cannot recall in 3 games I've seen anything remotely say, oh yeah, Kelly Olynyk's having an impact today. Not a lick. To the point now that Jordy's literally giving it like barely just minutes just to pass the time and see if you just kind of get through almost like a middle reliever. Can you give me 1 inning? That's all you with that mentality. Yeah. Can you give me 5 minutes to get to the next hurdle? That's all I'm trying to get the next team, the next set of guys. He's got to show up, man. And I don't expect him to be wilding out against if we get over to play the Americans, but some of these squads, he should be better than what he is right now.
I mean, he was key for how we did in the last World Cup, really. So, I mean, you would expect he wasn't perfect, but he played significantly better.
Let me tell you something, boys and girls. He better be knocking down that shot against the team we're about to play, or they're going to be sitting there with a campfire sitting in that paint if you don't start knocking down some shots.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Rudy's going to have the wood like this, and he may make the campfire sitting right in that paint if you don't start hitting some shots.
Now,
same thing with Big Vic.
True. I will say this. The defense isn't perfect, of course, but, overall, our perimeter defense especially has basically maintained itself to what I thought it would, which is good. Just some stats right here. We've been able to force about 16 turnovers and force teams to shoot around 28%. That's pretty impressive. And part of what they've done is because they've been so aggressive on the perimeter without being Nick Nurse level all over the place, I would say, or frenetic. I would, in my opinion, I think that they've allowed themselves to force the other team's bigs to get uncomfortable.
Yes, and I think they have that is their saving grace for this matchup as well too. Because the last friendly, they're aggressive and they just mauled the guards of France.
Yes, because they have a team that most teams can't match up with their guards, and they don't have the bigs to be able to initiate offense, which is, thank goodness we're not facing Serbia kind of a thing. But, that's the key right there, is that because you are in a situation where most bigs aren't used to playmaking like a Jokic, or I guess to a lesser extent, a hypothetical Kellyo, or Giannis as well. And even Giannis, he needs to work on his playmaking, but that almost, got us into trouble. That was our toughest task. I mean, that's where you're seeing, you're playing to your strength and you're letting yourself win through that. And I think that it is a strategy that we can use again against France, at least this year. In the future, I don't know, because 2028 comes, that dude is, I don't know what he's gonna be. He might be the, for those of you who are into TNG, he might be Data 2.0. So he might be the board, right? So yeah, that's enough of those references, though. You could tell what I've been watching on Netflix. Uh, you know, so moving along, let's go through the path. First of all, are you guys happy with this path? Is there any other way that it could have, like, do you wish we were facing Greece earlier or Germany earlier, or are you happy?
Fine with the path that we have right now. The Americans are on the other side of the bracket.
Yep.
And as I look at this path, though, I know specifically for Canada you're talking about, but of the four games that are going to be played, I can see three potential upsets. Only the Americans, I think, it's pretty safe they're going to beat Brazil. That's just to shows um, the parity of the Olympics right now of all of these host nations. I can see Greece upsetting Germany.
Yep.
I think Germany will win, but it's not going to shock me if Greece is. I think Giannis is the best player of the group. So just in terms of Canada as well, I'm fine with us playing France. It's going to be difficult. I was listening to someone on CBC or TSN, I can't remember which one, but they said Victor Wembanyama is poised to have one breakout game,
Yeah.
and you just kind of wonder, is that going to be against Canada, or what's where when is he going to have that game?
Hope
And
not.
you just certainly hope not. And I would just tell Shea is going to get a heavy dose of Bilal Koulibaly on him. So time to be ready.
Yeah, but I think this is the type of game I focused on Murray and Olenek because I think we should win our second units. And I've always been concerned about the second.
Yes.
But I think with this team, with France, where there's like such a drop off on their second unit, no disrespect to Frankie Smokes, man, but like I'm not fearing that coming off the bench. Like, if that's what you're giving me. Like, sorry, I'm just not, man. But what's the big fella? He used to play in the NBA a little bit. That's their third guy. That's just like their front court player. He's
I was
a
gonna
he's,
joke and say Rudy, but that's
Oh,
just
I know
being
who
me.
you mean. Like
yeah,
Boston.
yeah. He's kind of plays power forward.
Yep.
I'm not, he had a nice tournament, but I'm not really fearing him either. I think if we look at, not saying everything's the same from the friendly we played, but there's places to exploit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm also glad that we played that friendly because it gives you a little bit of both exposure, but also like exposure to the correct team. And there's things that I saw in that friendly, which goes right to our strength again, where I think that there is a pathway to win. Assuming that they move on, I think the more interesting, not the easier, but the more interesting, I don't think either are easy, but I would like to see us face Germany.
Yeah.
Um, first of all, I think Greece has a clear strength that they can kind of exploit against us, and really good coaches, are good at exploiting their weaknesses and spamming them until and just forcing an adjustment. Not all coaches do that. Some coaches are zealots, as Beyond would refer to, but I think it's key to when you have even if you have a strategy, if something's working, stick with it. And that's one of
Yeah.
the things that I like about Jordy. Now, before we get into that potential matchup, I just want to say one of the things that I like is that when the game slows down a lot, we have a good system where I guess they call it flattening out. Shout out to Jonathan Chen, who kind of outlines these type of things on Raptors Republic, as well as I believe his name is Adam, who has been on this. Both have been on this podcast actually, and we'll have them back again. It's clear that they are good at not just building isolation possessions that are very good and impactful, but really clearing out and, like, as he said in his article, flattening out the rest of your guards on one side of the floor to really clear out space for a guy like Shea to operate. And again, I showed if people go back to the last episode, our varied attack is our strength. we don't just do threes and layups. We have a probably I'd have to do the actual calculations, but probably an even split between all three levels of scoring, and that is pretty rare. The closest is the Americans, and we're probably more varied than the Americans because they just have better athletes than us that allow them to get to the rim. But that is the closest, and that is our strength. Because when the game slows down, those European teams and Australia to a lesser extent, when they get into the mid range, they don't necessarily know how to handle it, and that's where you can succeed. Our offense doesn't stall out just because we can't get to the rim, and yet we can still get to the rim. Now I'm going to go in reverse order. Actually, I'm going to go straight to coach this time. Your thoughts on, moving forward. Let's assume that we, knock on wood, we move forward. What, do you see us continuing on our path towards a gold medal or no?
Well, I'll just say one thing before I answer that question. This game in France for the home team, this will be like game five when we played Golden State 2019 in Toronto. It'll be
True.
that kind of atmosphere, I think, with the home crowd. So it's going to be really difficult, to play in. But to answer your question, do I see a path forward? I do. I think if we can just get by France, which I predict that we will. We should beat them. We have better guard play, better wing play, as Beyond said, better bench. We get to Germany, that's going to be a very interesting game. Now, I know we beat them in FIBA last year. We did beat them one game, and I think they had beat us in like in an exhibition game, something like that. We match up a little better with Germany. I think our guard play certainly is much better. Now, Germany's wing play and some of their bigs, that's where it's going to be a bit of a problem for us. But I want to see a Canada and Germany semifinals. That would be an unbelievable game to watch.
I'm a little more of what the three teams are on the bracket. I'm a little more concerned about Germany. The reason why is I know love them and hate Raptor fans. I think one thing is that Schroeder is showing in this case, he can be crafty enough with the type of team he has in Germany, where he could cause havoc in this case for you defensively. We haven't really played anyone has like a point guard that really dominates or runs a lot of pick and roll. And I don't know yet how we would handle that yet. And considering how our bigs are, it would make me a tad bit nervous. A lot of confusion with picking pots or fronts. I don't like that scenario one bit. one bit. It just pit my stomach a little bit. I think we would get through it, but I think I'd rather have the predictability of Greece than deal with that. And it's strange to say so with Giannis, but I think I prefer that. And as for France, look, man, it's like a playoff game. You said it best, Coach. Man, take the crowd out early. We can't be
early.
we can't be doing no dilly dally in the first quarter today or tomorrow. Like we gotta be on top of things early, And I think that will be helpful because let's face it, for the most part, that bench, that second unit is a young second unit. If you get on top of them, sometimes younger players don't play that great when it's not going so well. I don't expect that for Wemby. That dude's that dude's a mutant. He can just do him. But the rest of the guys, once you get past that old guard of Rudy and Fournier and Batum, and you get that second unit with the bellies a little soft, that's where I think he should really start, pushing things. I expect Murray to he should have his way with that group.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to post this today or if I'm going to post this on game day, which is tomorrow when this is filmed. But it is going to be August 6th, 12 o'clock.
High noon. Showdown.
High noon. Right, the Wild West, man.
Exactly. Take some time for your lunch break. Watch some good basketball. Watch some good hoops and enjoy. In terms of
a question,
yeah,
sorry, I thought. And Andrew Nembhard stepped up in the last game.
Yeah, he did.
Game against Australia, I think it was more RJ Barrett. We've always had someone else outside of Shea who has stepped up. Who is your guy you're looking for in the game against France? Someone who needs to step up or someone you think will step up?
I think those two will be consistent. I think a guy like RJ is also very consistent. So I think that their play will level off. The person that I'm looking to spike is still Dylan Brooks, especially against that French crowd. If you're looking for someone to take out a crowd or get into it with a crowd, That's the guy for this specific tournament because Shea is a smooth operator until it's all done. Then he cusses you out.
Yeah.
So I mean that's probably for this specific game. He thrives in those environments, and he kind of likes that type of thing. He's the type of dude that you remember he was walking around with boxing gloves and stuff like in the World Cup, doing all sorts of antics. Sure. So I think that he's probably the guy that might be the one to step up this game. But be a close second because again, that second unit is still kind of looking for like a definitive scoring leader. And I think that he might be emerging as one as time goes on, regardless of his playmaking and decision making. His ability to score, and his willingness to put on a consistent level of effort and be successful and impactful on the defensive end, I think is where his strength lies as a young budding player.
And I think the thing that Nemhard can provide, which really besides SGA, it can do. And right now, if you assuming how Murray's playing, maybe you can't assume that with Murray, but SGA for sure. He's the only other guy in this case really could create a shot in the mid range. And when you're playing against those twin towers, that's the shot you got hit. You're not gonna get all the way to the hoop, and he actually can get that shot pretty much how he wants to. So to me, I'm expecting him. I think what's going on with him a little bit. I give him his props. I've been a little tough on Andrew over the last few months, be it the playoffs or this. But I think what I think is going on with him a little bit is I think early on he was kind of playing towards like a totem pole mentality. Okay, I'm second banana here with Murray. I'll wait and follow his lead. And I think he finally realized, like, yo, man, that switch ain't turning on for Jamal. Okay, I'm just going to do me. Because I think he's kind of figured out where you fit. And I think now, to Canyon's point, I think now he's like realizing it's on me to quote Pot. Like, he got to do it because he's like, right now, what we see, Murray just doesn't have it. And I think he's going to be much more aggressive as this tournament continues, how long it goes on. Now,
Yeah.
with him too aggressive always makes me a little nervous, but but they do need a score.
Exactly. Coach, you were gonna
Well, I'm curious about what France does too, as well,
right.
because I don't think Gobert's helping them too much. I can see him in the next game against us. You might not see too much of Gobert depending on how the game's going. And they just leave Wemby out there to play the five position. France likes to play 5 out. One thing you can't do if you got Gobert on the floor is play 5 out. And certainly France can do that. We're small enough. And I'm curious to see if we're going to try a little bit more of that, especially on offense when they play us.
It's funny you mentioned because during the friendlies they've been playing, and I think if I watched them more in the friendlies than actually in the Olympics. But during that time period, their coach was actually playing them, like, swapping them out. He was, he was exchanging them one for the other. He wasn't really playing them together too much. So, and that I don't know how he's been playing them in the Olympics right now. But I think to your point, I do wonder how the Gobert factor plays into this because on offense, if you got Gobert, they got to run pick and roll Gobert. It's the only reason why he's there. Is like if you want to make him useful on offense. He's not really a natural guy to put in a dunker position really because the hands aren't really fantastic. So you gotta be careful with that a little bit. So then that leaves having to have Wemby on the perimeter, spotting up for three, or long two. Like that's not really what you want to do to him. So I think it's gonna be a real chess match going on here. When this game goes on.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the other side of the bracket? Where we go?
Yeah, so I was that's exactly where I want to go is the Americans play same day, different time. I don't think Brazil's a challenge, no offense to Brazil. So really it's dependent on the other really interesting matchup, which is Serbia and Australia. And I think I think Serbia might have enough to get through Australia, even though they it. I think that they have the right bigs and the right combination of, say, bigger guard slash wing type players to get through Australia, but it's not going to be easy. I think Australia has a better um, guard, to wing tandem. So there's kind of like a little mismatch of skills there, and that's what makes that matchup really interesting. I'm gonna go with Serbia just for that reason. Like guys like Bogdanovic, Jovic, those are gonna be the guys that I would be looking for more than, Patty Mills going crazy. And I think, uh, no offense, but don't think that Josh Giddey is, while he gets the respect from an international standpoint, I don't think he's all that. And I think that guys like Dyson Daniels have punched above their weight. They're at the max that they can go. There's no extra level for him to kind of reach.
Hmm. I like Australia. I really think Australia's got the wing depth and the length to give these guys and the athletes to give. Because right now, what I've seen in Serbia, athleticism gives them trouble. The Americans or the French when they play them,
That
athleticism gives them
that's
trouble.
fair. That's fair.
And it's like it don't matter how much Jokic you got out there, you can't play everywhere. I'm just looking at the team, and they had stat with his minutes when he's off the court. Oh my gosh, like heck, man, I think colleges might beat them in this case here when he's off the court. So like that's a humongous drop off. Bogdanovich has been okay. Bogdanovich, he's a funny guy in this sense. He always tends to get more love than the other Bogdanovich, but personally, from the
Well,
professional standpoint, the other Bogdanovich means always been more of an effective player, especially in the playoff time, than this Bogdanovich.
he has, but it's well, I guess both of them have knee issues, but I think that that's
Yeah,
part of the problem is that like
but
when you don't see someone for a while, you just forget.
right, he ends up more being abstract. People like this, like Bogdanovich, but when you watch it in this case here, he has some moments where you don't even know he's on the court, man. Like he's like is he around? Like so, I think with those length with the guys there, the athletes they have with Green and Exum and who else I'm forgetting there, and who else I'm forgetting?
Dyson
Daniel.
Daniels, yeah.
You got some guys there that I think will cause him some trouble defensively, and they're gonna get out and run, man. You know,
All the games in this new knockout stage, this is the game. Objectively, if I was not rooting for Canada, I would be watching this game. I'm going to try to watch it anyway, but I can't. I think this game will be the closest game of all of them. I could see it going either way. I would give Serbia maybe the slight nod, only because of Jokic and the program that they have, but Australia could upset them, as Beyond said. I think there's potentially stronger wing play in Australia than there is for the Serbian team. And Jock Landale has been playing pretty well in these Olympics. He's not Jokic, of course, but some of these bigs that come to the NBA and they go back to the FIBA or the international game, him, Daniel Tice, these guys look pretty good. And once again, won't shock me if Australia upset Serbia. I don't know if I even call it an upset per se, because Australia is pretty good.
I agree. I agree. After that, I mean, obviously, as I said, the U.S. plays the winner, and then from there, I mean, we just don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, so we will see. It does look like that would happen on the 8th, so I'm just making sure. I mean, I'm sure if we're in the gold medal game, we'll find the time to do some sort of, even if it's just me, and you guys can't join, we'll have an episode of Basketball Rewind, even if it's only 10 minutes, and we will talk about Canada in the gold medal game. So, stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe. Are there any final parting shots that you want to talk about regarding, the only team that's kind of left in terms of Olympic basketball for Canada?
looking forward to it, man. I'm just kind of fascinated to see how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, coach.
I'm very pleased with Jordy in this Olympics so far. His rotations, I think they've been very good. He's finding the right player to use at the right time. I give him credit. He's still playing Jamal Murray a fair amount of minutes, trying to get him going. And like Beyond said, I've seen some flashes of it. And you just hope maybe in this next game against France, that maybe he starts to pick it up a little bit. And you'd hope
Yeah.
that a guy like Kelly Olynyk can pick it up a little bit because he hasn't been here. Him or Trey Lyles, right? Quite frankly, and you could use those guys against France, especially if you need to stretch the floor out with Wemby off the floor and you get Gobert on. Could use a stretch big or two out there.
Yeah, Jordy's been known at times. He got a lot of flack for yelling at the guys last year, but he's also known as actually a players coach, funny enough, and but a disciplined players coach. And so, I think finally a lot of people that were yelling at him before are now turning around and giving him high praise. And I've always been a Jordy fan. Yeah, that's I'll leave it at that. And I just, I'm happy that he got a head coaching job actually, in with the Nets. So, looking forward to, he's certainly earned it, and I just hope that he stays with this program for some time. And that's really all. So with that being said, basketball rewind, when this comes out, whether it's whether it's tonight or whether it's tomorrow, we will decide. But enjoy the game, watch Canada basketball as long as we are able to watch basketball as long as you are able to as well. There's a lot of fun things going on, and yeah, that's about it. So take care and stay tuned.